Three, two, one, and we're live. What's up, everybody? It's Tyler with Hook Sets Are Free. Hope you're having a great night. It is Friday night, July 14th. I was just on last night talking about iCast and all of the new products, as well as a few of the award winners. Really just the baits that came out at iCast. But tonight, I've got a little package to unbox from Discount Tackle. As you can see, it's just a little guy. So not a ton in here, but it is exciting. All of the baits in here are new to me, so it will be fun to open them up, tell you about my first impressions, and talk about why I purchased them, etc. So cheers, everybody. I'm drinking a little Coors Banquet tonight, and then we'll probably have a little bit more of the Buffalo Trace that I opened last night and made more of a dent in than I thought I did, but that happens sometimes. So anyway, cheers, everybody. I see Joe Cool and Frank Doucette in the house tonight. How you doing, gentlemen? Get your popcorn out. Indeed. I don't have a ton to share, but I will share what I've got, and then we can hang out for however long you guys want to tonight. Doesn't need to be a crazy long stream this evening, but I did just get my package in the mail today and thought it would be a convenient time to hop on since I am definitely busy the next handful of nights. I've got plans tomorrow night, going to a family friend's house in the neighborhood tomorrow for a birthday party, and then dinner as a group of adults. So we'll do a little game night tomorrow night and just hang out, and then spending most of the week with my wife before she goes back to work. So tonight is really the only opportunity I have to do this. And I do prefer to do it live as opposed to record and then edit. But looks like we've got Daniel T in the house, so he might be able to help provide some links. But there's only a couple of links to add in here. So as you guys will notice, I did include my affiliate link to Discount Tackle in the description of this video. So if you are interested in checking out any of these baits or anything else, there is a sale going on right now where a bunch of baits, they're calling it Primal Week, but a bunch of baits are on sale right now. In fact, I'll show you guys because I've got a bunch more stuff sitting in my cart right now. Not that I'm necessarily going to purchase them, but I very well might make a purchase. So I see Tom Mix is in the house. What's up, dude? How you doing tonight? Let me just pull up the sale real quick and show you what is going on at Discount Tackle at the moment. And that way you guys are in the know. Let me fix this for you. Okay, so Primal Sale Week. So 20% off of Z-Man, Rapala, Berkeley, Strike King, Yamamoto, Yozuri, 13, Terminator, Suffix, and VMC. So tons of different stuff is all 20% off right now. And I would recommend it. So whether you need to stock up on Senkos or Jackhammers or anything else under those brands, now would be a good time to do so. So I will just say I've got a bunch of stuff in my cart right now, 11 things at the moment. These are things that I was going to buy this month, but did not. You know, a bunch of Yamamoto baits. They do have Yamatanukis in a couple of colors that they didn't have for a while. So the 3.5 inch, they've got everything in stock except for green pumpkin and black and blue. And then in the 2.5 inch size, they've got green pumpkin and black and blue, as well as watermelon red and Mimizu. So yeah, they've got the junior size Jackal Bounty Fish in stock in a number of colors right now. So got that sitting in my cart right now. Might end up purchasing some of this stuff. but we'll have to see about that. Don't quite know. So anyway, Primal sale is going on right now. Keep in mind all of those brands that are 20% off right now. So anyway, let me get back here and show you. Tom says drying out, Tyler. What's drying out? Your money? Daniel says, here's the link. If you guys want to shop at Discount Tackle, use my link, please. Would appreciate y'all. What's up, Brendan? Good evening to you. JP, yo. All right, guys, let's get into it. This is just a small package, and then we can chit-chat about whatever else. We could browse the Primal sale if you want to. I wish I had the details about exactly how long the sale is running. I don't know that I saw that on there. It could be through the end of the week, or it could just be until tomorrow. I don't really know that, but don't see it listed. So, okay, guys. There are only 5 baits in this package, totaling $80. So you can imagine what kind of stuff is in here. Let's see what the current sticker is. Nothing special, just the old-fashioned black and white with a little bit of like a topo map type of background. So pretty cool, but I don't think it's unique. I think they've had that one before. Well, maybe not. We've had camo green, camo blue, 4th of July, Z-Man, gray, bunch of different ones. So maybe this topo black and white is new. I don't know. But let's get into it. Okay. So these are all newer baits to Discount Tackle. Here is probably the one that is most intriguing to me. After seeing some really good reviews on this at Tackle Warehouse, I decided to pull the trigger on it. But ordinarily, this is not really up my alley all that much, but it's a cool hybrid style bait. So check this out. This is the Picasso all-terrain inline spinner or spinner bait. So it is truly a hybrid between an inline spinner and a spinner bait. So technically, you ought to call it an inline spinner bait. Brendan, that is super cool. I would love to have you on my show sometime to go over your iCast experience, but I didn't want to request that of you before you had the opportunity to explain it to everybody on your own channel. So that is super cool that you were able to meet the owner of Z-Man as well as a bunch of pros and things like that and just have an overall good experience. So happy for you, man. Good evening. Here from Denver, from Chicago. That is one of my favorite things about this experience is that we're all in different places, but can be very much on the same page and hanging out together at the same time. So this is a swim jig made by Picasso with solid, pretty big hook on there, good bait keeper, and then their titanium weed guard system, which is super legit, somewhat flexible, but always comes back into position, has 4 different little guards on there. So it stays super weedless, comes through cover really well, but it compresses easily. So it does not impede hookup ratio. But unlike a traditional spinnerbait that would have the arm up here, this dude just runs right in front of the bait. So just like a traditional inline spinner, you're going to get this bait running directly in front. So this is a nickel and white blade to go with this white jig trailer or jig skirt, if you will. So great shad profile. There are a few particular lakes near me that I'm going to throw this in. And apparently this thing comes through all types of cover remarkably well, just snakes right through, as well, if not better than a traditional spinnerbait. So I'm excited to give this a whirl. Again, not something that is traditional or necessarily right up my alley, but I am curious to get to know this thing and see how it runs. And I will keep you guys posted on this. So retails for like $11.50 or $12, was on sale for $10. You know, all these things were like, well, no, actually the other ones are not discounted, but this was like 10% off, nothing crazy special. So $10.48. The other ones are 16 and $19. So let's get into those. Did you hear that? So the next two baits, the last two baits, if you will, are brand new to Discount Tackle. Can be found on the Hookup and maybe a couple of other retailers, but I think are relatively new to the US market, and I haven't heard many people talking about them. So I'm curious to get to know them and give you guys some first impressions. So the first is the Megabass Vibration X Dyna. Okay. This is a small lipless crankbait. This is the rattle in version. They do make it in a silent version as well, but they essentially merged a couple of baits to create this. So they essentially just took their blade bait, is it called the Vibration X? And turned it into a lipless. And so check out this body taper. You get that thicker tail, and you'll notice it more on the other color, but look at that dimple on the head. This is supposed to displace more water and create more vibration in the water, but this is just a little 2-inch dude that weighs 3/8 of an ounce. So still very castable, but it's a downsized, what would ordinarily be like a 1/4 ounce lipless bait. Very high pitch, and the weight is supposed to be evenly distributed and low in the body. So this thing is apparently supposed to start up immediately and have a ton of vibration. And I'm curious to get to know it. Look at the shape of this belly. That is pretty wild. Beautiful little craw color here that is called Wild Craw. So this bait retails at $16, and just like every other retailer in the US, Megabass does not allow for discounting, so you will pay full price for these, as I did. But beautiful color pattern here, where you get that black with red flake on the back, and then just a very natural fade from red to brown, and then with that hard orange belly. So beautiful bait, high pitch rattle. I think it's just got 3 rattle balls in there, but we should be able to see with this next color, hopefully, or at least I will be able to. We'll see. This one is called GLX Galaxy Gill. And I've seen pictures where this bait is looks totally different in all sorts of light conditions. It can look very green at times, and it can look very gold and shiny at other times. And so I can tell you already that this is a totally translucent bait. Might not look it to you at the moment, but I can see right through the bait and tell you that there are, 1, 2, 3 tiny little rattle balls in there, and then a fixed weight that runs right here in the bottom of the bait. Wish I could show you in proper lighting. You can kind of see the rattle balls in there. Right back here right now, they're hanging low. Now they're up higher. But there's a fixed weight that runs from the head down to the lowest part of the belly at an angle. And otherwise, the bait is totally free. Well, actually, there's a bit of a blocker in the tail section, so it runs like this. So the rattle chamber is just in from the nose down to, it's in kind of the center of the bait. The tail section is completely hollow up here. The rattles can go all the way up to the nose. And you'll see that dimple again on the top. And yeah, it's a nice looking lipless, tiny little dude, and I'm not mad about that. Pretty happy, but let's see if I can find just a tiny little description on the bait for you. So this is from the hookup. It says it's a compact bait with huge power, built with a bite-sized profile and ultra-high pitch vibration accompanied by violent rolls and excellent structure avoidance performance. The Vibration X Dyna is one of a kind. By lowering the center of gravity to improve stability, the Dyna has an overwhelming ability to swim correctly right away. And the Dyna creates strong waves and super fast flickering rather than conventional small vibes like most lipless. It evokes a finicky bass's fighting instinct and draws a new dimension to reaction bites. Okay. 2 inches, 3/8 ounce. Good little bait. $16 is not cheap for a small lipless crankbait, but it is Megabass. So since it's brand new to Discount Tackle, I decided to give it a whirl since it was that time of the month, and I wasn't able to pull the trigger on my purchase during the 4th of July sale. For whatever reason, their shipping deal was all messed up. And so I had my cart loaded with a wide variety of soft plastics from Yamamoto and Z-Man and other places, kind of like what you saw in my cart when I showed you 10 minutes ago. But I had to start from scratch a couple days later, and they had no sale running. So I decided to pick up these baits at full price and see what they're about. You know, these are all new to me. And the last bait here, the hookup talks about sometimes, but it's a pretty unknown bait, widely speaking. And I'm curious to know if any of you guys have tried it. This is the Megabass Vision 95. And specifically, it is called the Vision 95 Q Go. Let me see if I can show you guys what this bait is about. So this is a high buoyancy and low balance floating jerkbait. Okay, so it has a very unique action. I don't know that this video on here is the best one to show you, but I do have another one that I can show you that displays the wild action of this bait. So let me just show you the 2 colors that I have first. This one is called NC Pro Blue 2. So NC for Megabass stands for neon core, but really it just means that there's that internal flash system. So I got this color in particular, 1, because I'm a fan of Pro Blue, but 2, because that internal flash is going to be crucial with the way that this bait acts. Um, it is totally different than what you get out of really any other bait, especially made by Megabass, but any other jerk bait on the market. You can see where that weight is located all along the bottom of the bait. So there's a bigger chunk of lead up front by the nose, and then there's a long piece of lead all along the bottom of the back half of the bait. So all of the weight is at the very bottom and it's fixed. So there is no weight transfer system in this bait. However, because of that stability, it is supposed to cast really well for its size. You know, this is a slightly less than 4-inch bait at 95 millimeters, and I think it weighs maybe only 3/8 of an ounce, something like that. So this is a smaller than average bait, but it's essentially the same size as the Vision 110 Junior, but it comes with 2 hooks on it instead of 3. Which, you know, is not necessarily my preference, but I'm also not mad about it. The action is really what gets my attention about this bait more than anything. And so what this thing does, and I don't know if it's the shape of it or just where that weight is placed, but that combined with the fact that it's a floating bait makes for a very unique shimmy as it's starting to float back up. So you twitch this thing or swim it, and it has a lot of rolling as it swims. A little bit more aggressive action on a straight retrieve than most other jerk baits do. But then once you stop it, it has this wild, like, roll to it side to side as it starts to nose up. And then it sits on the surface, like with this much of the bait out and this much of the bait underwater, probably more at a posture like this. And very interesting. But with all that roll, I figured this internal flash is going to do some wonders. So decided to pick that up. It's $18.99. It's not a cheap jerk bait, but looks pretty sweet. So let me see if I can pull up the proper video to show you guys what the action of this bait actually looks like, because it is kind of crazy. And this is from a website called Blue Sea Bass, which I'm not really familiar with, but let's just skip ahead to, so here's the posture of the bait. And make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Okay. So that's the posture as it's sitting. And now here's a little bit of swimming action from the top. You see that it's got a lot of roll as it's just pulled and retrieved straight. But you can't really see the action of what it's like or what it looks like to the fish until we see it underwater. And here you'll get to see it. You can see it's got a lot of wiggle to it, especially when you stop the bait. You know, in this day and age, most jerk baits are supposed to stop dead in their tracks and just freeze when you stop them. But this bait continues to roll side to side and come to a stop a little bit more slowly. So very interesting in that transition from a little bit nose down to nose up, which is only maybe a half a second. The bait does a total shimmy, side, side, side. That's not it right there, but it's coming up. You'll get to see it head on in just a second here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that was the one I was thinking of. Maybe it's this. Yeah, did you see that? Kind of crazy. So there was 2 in a row there. You get this one. Roll, 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 roll. That's all in the time as it's starting to transition to nose up, which I think is really interesting. You know, the fish can see a lot that we cannot. And, you know, this is a totally silent bait. No rattles in it. Not that you needed to see that, because I can just shake it for you myself. But come here, Mr. Split Ring. So, silent bait with that internal flash in a pro blue color. That was one that I kind of felt like I wanted. Seeing that action of how much it actually wiggles as it's stopping. You know, most jerk baits, you really want an erratic side to side darting action on a twitch style retrieve. But this is a bait that I could see myself using totally different on a stop and go straight retrieve, swimming it and then stopping it and have it do its wiggle thing and rise up, and then twitch it once and have it do its wiggle thing and then keep swimming it. I could see myself doing a lot of different things with a bait like this than I would with a traditional jerk bait. So it just kind of got my creative juices flowing a little bit, and got me curious to give it a try. So, you know, it is unlike most jerk baits on the market. And the other pretty rad color, frozen tequila. You know, this is one that you just don't see come around all that often. And I don't think I have any Megabass bait in this color. So I just wanted to see it in person to know whether this is a color that I would want for the future in a different bait if and when it becomes available. And goodness gracious, that is gorgeous, right? I mean, I'm a sucker for matte finishes. In the light, this is translucent and has a lot more of like a glowy orange type of color. So the color that you can see on the belly is what it looks like to me in the light all the way through. It actually does look pretty natural from the side and in the light. Whereas when it's not in the light, it's going to have a lot more of a silhouette and that darker matte finish. So pretty cool color. Definitely not mad that I picked it up. It is one that, you know, you see come in and sell out immediately at a bunch of different places. So got 2 of the Vision 95, 2 of the Vibration X Dyna Rattle In, and 1 of the all-terrain inline weedless spinner bait, if you will. And yeah, it adds up quick, but I'm excited about all of those baits just because they're new to me. I've never fished them, and based on what I could see about them, they all look intriguing for different reasons, right? And as I said, I will keep you guys posted as I begin to try them out. I didn't quite notice that on this spinner bait, it does have a completely flat bottom on the head. So should be able to run this low and slow if you want without it rolling over too much, which is pretty sweet. Did not realize that, but flat bottom on that guy too. So very cool. All baits that I'm happy to have and throw in my arsenal and to use sooner than later. You know, I do like small lipless crankbaits. I've told you guys that a number of times before. Of course, my lipless box is fairly low in the stack right now. I've not thrown a ton of lipless yet this year, but I do have a compartment or two that are strictly dedicated to downsized lipless crankbaits, you know, and I've over the last year or so decided to pick up the Jackall TN50 as well as the Lucky Craft LV 150 in a couple colors. You know, I've got the Berkley War Pigs and the Yozuris and the Red Eye Shads all in their smaller sizes as well. I talk about it from time to time, but this tomato color Red Eye Shad has been a big producer for me over the years. And then I've also got rattle traps and yeah, more Yozuri, even like the Live Target one, all in the smaller sizes. So I do like to throw a small trap, even though I would say I throw a half-ounce trap probably 50 to 75% of the time. And then after that, we'll go smaller before I go larger. I probably only throw oversized traps like 10% of the time that I'm throwing a trap. That's a good question, Daniel. How close is it to Berkley Stone Cold? Berkley Stone Cold is definitely a lighter color. It's more blue than purple, but I do wonder. Now, these are all my JDM jerk baits. Let's see where my stunnas are at. So here's that Stone Cold color. You see that it's a lot more natural. So here they are side by side. The back is not all that different, but as you transition to the side, you notice that this Frozen Tequila is a lot more purple. The Stone Cold is a lot more grayish blue. And then it's got that pearlescent purple belly on the Stone Cold. And the Frozen Tequila has that orange belly. So they're definitely different colors, but I understand why you might ask that question, because they're both beautiful in similar ways. And the Stone Cold does have a lot of purple hues to it, especially in cloudier conditions. And it is that matte finish. So I understand why you'd ask that. I agree, Daniel. Both are great colors to me as well. Do I fish very clear water out there? No, it depends on the body of water. I fish kind of a wide variety. Some of the reservoirs that I fish are very clear water, but some are not. And I do fish a fair number of lakes and ponds that the water clarity can vary based on weather pretty drastically. So sometimes they're clear, sometimes they're not at all. And this year, clarity has been an issue because we got a ton of rain. Didn't really turn into summer until like last week. Last week was the first time our weather hit 90 degrees. We've had a few days in the 90s since then, but really the whole month of June, it was like 70s and raining every day. So, very strange late spring, early summer conditions here in Colorado. But I fish a wide variety of water clarity. It's a good point, Tim. Larger traps are really good for deeper staging fish in the pre-spawn. Um, that said, I don't fish from a boat, and I don't fish super deep very often. But you're absolutely right. That ripping a big trap up off of the bottom in deeper water can be a very effective way to catch big pre-spawn fish early in the season. You guys, Ozzy Osbourne talking about the war pigs, huh? Yeah. Well, not necessarily bass fishing. Absolutely for trout fishing. For all things fly fishing, Colorado is the deal. Um, it's a fantastic place to fish, but I just have developed an interest in bass fishing the last 8 years or so, maybe seven, since I moved back here. But growing up, I fly fished regularly. Uh, since I was a kid. You know, it's been one of my dad's biggest hobbies. He fly fishes, he skis, and he bikes. So skiing and fishing are my two main hobbies as well. And yeah, Colorado is a perfect place to do all three of those hobbies that my dad is super into. And so he's been an avid fly fisherman really his entire adult life and also grew up fly fishing. So I just inherited my late grandfather's fly fishing gear after he passed away. My grandma passed down some of his stuff that was still hanging around. So pretty cool to have that stuff. My dad's dad, who I named my son after, and taught me a lot of stuff when I was a kid as well. But we do a lot of fly fishing here, but that's in rivers first and foremost. And so it's very rare that we fly fish in still water. Um, I like to fly fish in creeks up in the mountains as well, which I did some of just last weekend when we were up there as my little family unit. So got out a handful of times and was able. I showed you guys some pictures last night. I can show those again to you right now. I was throwing a mixture of regular flies and like, panfish style plastics. And yeah, so I was running a baby Lunkerhunt Spider. This is a TPE elastomer style spider. Was throwing that as one of my flies in line. I typically throw a 3-fly setup if I'm not throwing a dry fly. If I am throwing a dry fly, I'll usually throw what we would call a hopper dropper setup with a small nymph style fly running behind it, just subsurface. But a lot of the time when I'm throwing a dry fly, I'll just throw it by itself. But had this bigger creek fish, beautiful rainbow, eat a soft hackle fly. Very traditional. And then I was throwing the mule fishing horsefly. Totally fucked up my rig on that one because the horsefly was my first fly with the most weight. And then I had the smaller flies running behind it, trying to keep everything down in the column. And after I hooked up with that fish, it took me for a wild ride. in high current and just messed up the entire rig. You'll see that then this other little baby brook trout that I caught was on that horsefly with the spider running behind it and then the soft hackle behind it. So the fish were actually eating all three presentations that day. But I do mix up, and ordinarily I throw more traditional flies. I tie a lot of my own flies. Um, and so, yeah, I grew up fly fishing here and do still fly fish maybe about once a month on average, probably 10 to 15 times a year. And then during the spring, summer, and fall, I try to go out bass fishing a couple times a week. Now, that said, I never have the opportunity to go out and fish for an entire day, except for a handful of days a year when I'm going fly fishing, usually with my dad or my brother. I will go for the entire day, and we will drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to some high alpine streams and rivers, and we will fish all day. But otherwise, throughout the year, when I'm just getting out to go fish, it's for a couple hours at a time, either a lunch break session or early morning, or if I can steal away from work for a couple hours, middle of the day, just whenever I can. Fancy is relative, Brendan. So I am fancy when it comes to my gear, but I'm not fancy when it comes to being snobby. Okay. I don't turn my nose up at other people fishing around me. I don't tell people what to do. I am kind and will give advice and share my flies and everything like that. Um, but I do have high end fly fishing gear. It's not quite the same type of game as bass fishing where you acquire a million types of baits. You just spend most of your money on the rods, reels, the waders, and so yeah, I've only got 3 different rod and reel setups, and they're all probably I don't $800 to $1,000 each. And then my waders are like $500 waders, $200 or $300 boots, and a $200 net. But then I tie my own flies the vast majority of the time. So everything that I'm throwing is cheap, although you go through a lot of it. But the setups are expensive. Yeah, no, I do have an Orvis reel, but it's still probably $300 to $400. But yeah, I throw Sage, and yeah, it's not cheap. And I do prefer Sims when it comes to my waders and boots. And yeah, I do have expensive taste when it comes to my gear, but I do not have one of those bamboo rods. I've thought about it. They're called Tenkara. Uh, it's just a rod with no reel, right? So it's just a long, like a 12-foot rod instead of standard would be like a 9-foot 3 or 4 piece rod. Um, no, I don't have a Tenkara setup, but did consider it a few months back, uh, just to fish around creeks and streams and stuff like that. They do make them in shorter lengths, but it's a different ball game, especially once you have a fish on. I do prefer to rely on the drag of a nicer reel. So maybe sometime I'll show you guys kind of the setups that I use in the way of rods and reels and my waders, and even my net perhaps. Like I'm scared to bring my net when going bass fishing, so I don't even bring a net to bass fish. I just bring a scale and then I risk it for the biscuit. I don't want to damage my nice net because when I'm fly fishing and wearing my waders, I can tuck my net into the back of the waders on my vest. And so then when I've got a fish on, I will just retrieve the net. And it's got a long handle that's probably 2 or 2.5 feet long. It's got measurement stick on it and everything, but pretty sweet. No, the waders are just very nice. I'll say that. Top of the line. And I didn't pay full price. I do know some family friends that are in the industry. Got a buddy that I grew up with that spends half of his year in Alaska um, at a lodge that does salmon fishing. And so he's got access to pro deals at about 40% off. So I did buy the waders and boots at 40% off. But I think that was about it that I got a screaming deal on. Maybe that Orvis reel as well. But otherwise, no. Most of my stuff is full price. Yes, indeed they do. So, I grew up I don't want to call it snobby, but feeling like, proper fish handling was important. So, I still cringe whenever I see someone catch a bass or a bluegill and just flip it up onto the bank and let it get all covered in dirt and stuff like that, and they just throw it back in. It's like, well, you just kind of messed up that fish. So I always grew up feeling like when you've got a fish on, you need to get your hands wet before you touch that fish. And ideally, you need to keep the fish in the water. So we'll net the fish and keep it in the water and then reach into the net with our hands wet and grab the fish to then take the fly out and then release the fish. So it's out of the water, maybe a couple of seconds, maybe a little bit longer if you want to take a couple photos, but otherwise, yeah, very delicate. So trout are not nearly as hardy, especially if you fight them for a long time, which sometimes can happen, especially if you're in current and it's a bigger fish. You have to wear the fish out a lot more because fly fishing is done with light line, tapered leaders, all stuff like that. So you rely on the drag of your reel and the bend in your rod and just fighting the fish. And then the second that it starts to wear out is when then you might start to horse them in a little bit. But you're a lot more prone to breaking your line when fighting fish on fly fishing setups. It's just kind of the name of the game. And it felt a little bit like that when I was fighting that catfish on my BFS setup the other day. Like, holy shit. It was good that this BFS reel, the Shimano SLX BFS reel, has a clicking drag, just like the Daiwa Zillion and a couple of other reels have. And being able to hear the drag was crucial. Because I think otherwise I might have horsed that fish a little bit too much and likely broken my line. But fortunately, that did not happen. So, in short, yes, we also, in the spirit of proper fish handling, we also use barbless hooks the vast majority of the time. So, yeah, most fly fishermen here in Colorado just are like anti barbed hooks. And so if ever I'm fishing with a guide, which is maybe once or twice a year, and I'm using flies that I tied and forgot to pinch the barb, and if the guide notices that it's not a barbless hook, they'll give me a hard time. Yeah, what's up with the chat, guys? You guys got super quiet. Let's talk about bass fishing baits. All right. We could talk about other stuff. We don't need to talk about fly fishing. I don't know if that bores you guys. We've been on for 49 minutes. We got 18 people in here. What do you guys want to talk about right now? I wish I had that Jackall Swing Mikey to show you guys right now. And I wish I had some actual footage to show you guys because I don't know if Matt was talking about a bait or if I just saw a video of something else that was released. Maybe it was the Imakatsu lazy swimmer that reminded me of this, but it was fascinating to learn about how the Swing Mikey actually functions and where it's going to come into play as the season progresses. It's a floating bait. It sits on the surface, but with any bit of wind or current or just a very, very slow retrieve, that tail just kind of wags back and forth. And you can barely twitch that thing and it will just turn on itself. And you can twitch it just a little bit harder and it will just walk in place. And as you slow retrieve it, it will just have this very natural, lazy swimming action on the surface. And as you start to speed it up at like a slow to medium speed retrieve, it will swim and wake perfectly on the surface. And as you speed it up to a little bit more of like a medium retrieve, it will start to dive underwater. And if you go at a true medium speed, it will swim pretty fast and aggressively, anywhere from barely subsurface to as deep as 2, maybe 3 feet at most. And it's got a really cool action. So very happy about that, and would recommend it to anybody if you're interested in crank downs, wake baits, bluegill style baits. I automatically am a bigger fan of it than I am most other bluegill glide baits, swim baits that I have. So sometimes all it takes is that first bite, but a lot of it is just seeing the action of it straight out of the pack and seeing how versatile of a bait it is. I could see getting bit on it pretty frequently in just dead sticking the bait and very slowly working it, or just tiny twitches to make it turn on itself as if the bluegill's like checking, and just stop and go retrieve to make it escape a little bit and then stop in place and just kind of slowly wag its tail. But I think it was the introduction or the presentation of the lazy swimmer. This year they introduced the 9-inch lazy swimmer, and he was talking about that a little bit, that it's pretty awesome on a dead stick or super, super slow retrieve presentation because it's a surface bait. And intrigues me. I'll say that. Big baits, big baits, big baits. Why did you guys' chat crash? That's weird. Sorry that YouTube seems to hate you guys. It's probably that it hates me and this stream for whatever reason I don't know about. Favorite ultralight / BFS lures and baits. Whoo. There's a lot in that category, but I don't have my tackle box with me right now. I've got a 3600 size box that is packed full of probably 100 or more different BFS lures. But historically, the Dynamic Lures HD Trout, which is a sinking jerkbait, made here in Colorado, is my go-to. It's got a faint rattle in it and a really, really good middle of the road, bordering on aggressive swimming action. I prefer to fish it on a straight retrieve, and it's an awesome, awesome bait. But the Imakatsu waddle bats, I have put some time into this spring. Have caught a couple of fish on it and really like it. It's the little bats, or it's the baby size version. It's like a 1/8 ounce waddle bats. That's a really good one. I like to throw ultralight poppers. For a number of years I liked the Strike King Bitsy Minnow, but I've found other smaller crankbaits that I like a little bit better. But You could go back on my channel. We've done that stream in particular where I've gone through that entire box and talked about. I've also got a bag full of soft plastics that is just for BFS. So I'd also be happy to do that again sometime in the near future and go over that stuff. But when it comes to mule fishing, for a while it was the Donkey Tail Junior. These days, I think it is the horsefly. That split tail is probably my favorite. I do also like the mule minnow, but that's a newer one to me. I just don't have a ton of time with it. It's just a flat bait, so a little bit more difficult to rig, but also really great bait. It's just a straight tail bait. Oh, rad. You're going to have Baitman on the show. Yeah, Kevin is a good dude. I think we all like Kevin. Baxter. The Raid Okasana swimmer. It rings a bell, but it doesn't bring anything up in my head about what that bait is. I'm not sure. For some reason, my wood model wattle bat allows me to retrieve it quicker than the silent model. Interesting. Yeah, I am curious to try that wood rattle wattle bat, but that's my one gripe with the wattle bats is that it is a bait that wants to be swum at a slow to medium speed retrieve. You really can't fish it too fast because it will blow out pretty easily. So I find that it does really well at a medium slow retrieve where it's down at depth and banging into things. And because it floats up super slow, it almost suspends where it is. I find that fish will come out and get it when you kill it or when it deflects, and it's just kind of sitting there for a second before you start it back up or right after you start it back up. But the wattle bats is an awesome series of baits and something that I am going to invest more into moving forward. Me too, JP. I assume you've tried the regular wattle bats. Tom, I don't know that I was ever looking for them, was I? Zara Pooch. Yo, that doesn't even ring a bell. What is that? Is it like a baby-sized spook? Yeah, it looks like it. I don't think I went looking for them. But I will say the new Strike King Bitsy series of baits. So the Bitsy dog should be a really fun little walking bait. I have used the Evergreen Shower Blows 77 a little bit. I like that. Or 777, if you will. But no, I don't use a ton of ultralight walking baits, but I think the Bitsy dog from Strike King will be a good one. And yeah, that Bitsy splash will probably work its way into the arsenal as well. And then there was one other, the Bitsy red eye shad, probably. You know, I don't mind a tiny little 1/8 ounce trap. Yeah, not surprised to hear that. I think everybody that's in the know about the wattle bats is a fan. So, yeah, I'm just glad that not everybody is in the know and that they are somewhat hard to find. Well, I'm not necessarily happy about that because they're hard for me to find as well. And I don't necessarily want to pay full price. I don't want to pay $25 for each of the baits, but I do like that they're not readily available because I don't think anybody else is throwing them, at least where I'm at. Daniel doesn't like the look of the raid bait that Matt's talking about. No, the fish don't care. Uh, Technically both, Daniel. You have to be prepared to catch anything. Uh, I'm still going for bass, but I'm expecting that anything might eat. So I've caught both bluegill and sunfish, um, actually crappie as well, and bass. Um, oh, and now trout as well on my and catfish. So technically anything. It's just a little bit of a multi-species deal. It depends on the presentation that you're throwing, right? If you're throwing something like what I was the other day, just a micro-sized plastic, like I was throwing, um, it was like a trout magnet style jig head that I had tied a thin rubber skirt on, and then put the mule fishing um, horsefly on the back of it. So the whole presentation was like an inch and a half long and super light. So um doesn't have a lot of weight to it. So the cork, throwing a bobber actually makes it a little bit easier to cast, and then allows for you to detect bites that much easier and to dead stick the bait at a controlled depth. So if you're fishing like that, you should expect to catch more panfish than you are bass. But if you're throwing a crankbait, if you're throwing a micro-sized chatterbait, anything like that, you should expect to catch all species, but it's usually going to be smaller bass if you are catching bass. So keep that in mind. It's a fun way to switch out of using a spinning rod, especially if chasing multi-species. And who doesn't love throwing a bait caster, right? Sinks super slow like a Senko. A Senko doesn't sink super slow. I would say a Senko has a medium fall rate. A Yum Dinger has a super slow sink rate, but a Senko has a medium fast fall rate, whereas like the Max Scent, um, what do they call their stick bait? The General. The Max Scent General probably has the fastest fall rate of a stick bait, but the Senko doesn't have a slow fall rate, just has the most intriguing fall and shimmy action on the fall of all the stick baits, and that's why it is the GOAT. Yeah. You know what I was throwing up in the mountains a bit this past weekend and did not get bit on, but was super salty about? I had taken one of these chatterbaits. These come naked, by the way. This is the Z-Man Flashback Mini chatterbait. I tied this skirt on here. It comes with like a size 2 hook on it, and I tied some of these in marabou. Might have one or two sitting in here. Wow, this one is beefy. This one is a combination of rubber and marabou, couple different colors of marabou with rubber, but I had one that was just a straight black marabou, and the action of it in the water looked fantastic. So good, and the fish were not eating it. I was pissed, but yes, bucktail and marabou, definitely underrated. I have thrown some, but not had a lot of luck. In fact, I have not caught any fish on big baits. Now, big is relative. I've thrown the Slide Swimmer 175 a handful of times. I've thrown the 7-inch Spark Shad, obviously the Mag Draft a handful of times. I've thrown the Bass Pro Glide Bait. I've thrown a bunch of like 6 to 8-inch baits, but nothing huge. And it's been a lot of like exploration instead of just like dedicated. I'm just throwing this bait until I either catch a fish or I go home skunked. So, I probably haven't put quite enough time into them. So no. And that Swing Mikey is only 115 millimeters. It's like a 5-inch bait. It feels a little bit bigger than it is. It weighs an ounce. But no, that's the short of it. It has not been a great big bait year for me. And the spring kind of flew by. Our water went from cold to like spawning temperature very quickly. I was not able to like get on a proper pre-spawn bite this spring, so that kind of messed with me mentally. And so I've not committed to big baits all that much yet. Yeah, I miss Adam Odin. Where's he at? Matt, you spoke to him the other day. Is he okay? Nobody knows what happened to him. All right, that's fair. I mean, I totally understand if someone wants to take like a break from social media, a break from the internet, and just recharge their batteries and get back to like who they are as a person. My wife does that probably once every couple of months. Is she'll make a point to take a full week or more off of being on social media and really limiting her internet usage. But glad to hear that he's doing okay. Glad to hear it. Because, yes, I think we all miss him, Frank. Just not seeing him in our group chat and stuff like that. But kind of weird, kind of sad. Yeah, he should go live. Maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he wants to come on and give us an update on any fishing that he's done and what's new in his world, and just kind of get him recharged if he's up for it. Of course, if he's not, no big deal. As I said in Matt's stream, I want to have Brendan on in the next week or two to be able to, for me to pick his brain on what ICAST was like, because I think it was his first time to ICAST, and I think he went with the Monster Bass guys, and so I'm sure that was a fun experience, and he got to meet a lot of cool people, and it also sounded like I used the term last night, drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think maybe just being around the pros and in that environment, I wonder how much Brendan was just buying what they were selling in terms of what they were telling him and saying about the baits. Whether or not he truly believed it, I'm not sure, but I would be curious to hear about what the experience was like as a whole and what his impressions are about some of the baits that are out there based on the information that was presented to him in person. There were also a bunch of baits that I didn't talk about last night that I kind of have been wanting to address. So what if we just hop on real quick to Tackle Warehouse's preview deal on YouTube, just to remind me of some of the stuff that they have been posting over the last couple of days. I haven't seen all of it. That's for dang sure, because this is that time of year where they post a whole lot of stuff. But let's go through a couple of these. Holy shnikes. There's a lot more than I thought. All right, so let's start with maybe Strike King. I'm going to show you guys because there are some baits that were not listed from Wired to Fish that that I think are worth talking about. Strike King and Z-Man, as well as a few others that kind of grabbed my attention. So
joining me in the Strike King booth, Mr. Mark Menendez.
8, 10, 15 feet or to get the bait down, then allow the
the J300 sink I don't care about.
And I just bait fish.
Different designs. We have a little jerk bait. We got a little spinner.
A little inline spinner that we've all grown up fishing with.
These are the Bitsy series.
Red-eyed shad. That's really great when those shad are.
There's that baby red-eyed shad. I'll throw that.
Schools around individual pieces of cover. Rip that thing, drop it beside it. This one right here. Does that not look like a minnow? Just that little dude right there.
Bitsy Splash. I'll do that.
So that's what they're for. They're have fun, catch a lot of fish, and we've got them in just about every shape, fashion, form we need.
You know, I didn't want to prompt you on this because I thought you were going to go down the pond route, which you certainly did. Ponds and creeks.
Sometimes.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pull the fish.
Interesting baits. You just said it.
Now this bait, this was not listed, but
something that we do a lot of in the West is spider grubbing or hula grubbing. This is a new luau craw, isn't that right?
Absolutely. And it takes the
what do you think about this luau craw?
On it.
It's a hula grub made by Strike King.
Big size rage craw. So you've got plenty of bulk, Joey. You've got plenty of bulk to call those fish from distance, but you've got the little tentacles here.
So it's a half of a rage craw.
Very straight up and down, just like that, with either a football head or any kind of grub head
with a built-in.
What it is, it's a little
soft plastic skirt.
Morsel is what it is. And there are those times in those style of reservoirs in which you need.
So hula grub, rage craw. That's kind of cool. I very well might try that. Now the Rage Hawk, I think we talked about.
Is the rage. That flange.
Interesting, but perhaps not worth discussing right now.
Very good bait fish.
Sexy shad.
I mean, this is it.
I talked about Todd Castledine, like really trying to explain his way into why the gravel dog is unique. I mean, literally, he spent 6 minutes
to start off with
describing like, oh, this was so hard to figure out, but couldn't explain why they made it or what the action is about. And I was like, that's pretty annoying.
At AT&T,
now this was posted today, and I saw some of it. So,
if you guys want to check these out, they're going to be available for pre-order and should be available around fall time. Is what you're saying.
So Z-Man's got a new goby bait.
You know, all the different 3D printed colors on here just absolutely does a phenomenal job representing all the bottom-oriented bait fish.
Yeah, and that's a sharp-looking little bait, like you said, with the colors, 3D printed colors that look phenomenal. And then Elastec material.
It's a dark sleeper made of Elastec. I don't know.
Nice little hidden hook in there.
I mean, I'm probably not going to jump on that.
Oh yeah.
But this bait we talked about reminds me of the man bear pig a bit. Looks pretty cool. They talk about that bait. It's called the Gremlin.
But the Gremlin is an awesome bait.
And then this bait.
What What do we got with
I
this?
feel mixed about this.
TRD gobies. It's 2.4
It's a
inches
TRD
long, so part of the TRD
gobies.
line, which obviously catches a lot of fish.
It's going to be a
smallfish,
drop shot bait
winter
or a
water,
Ned
but this
rig
here,
bait.
really,
Probably more of a
really quick
drop
little tail
shot
on it, so a
bait. I
lot of
could
action
see it
on it without a
working
lot of movement.
in that
It's
regard.
like an immature
So
goby size.
might be a good option.
Extract everything. You can have rattles in there.
Now here's
It's
this
gonna be tungsten weights and download
rattle
here, for the
insertion
fish. You
device,
can really
which
fish
looks pretty
safety, you know, a
sweet.
lot of different things.
So
Comes
might
with
want to look into
2
that.
million
I will
rattles
probably
inside
be
of it,
getting
which
it at
makes the
some
noise of
point.
the rattlesnaker.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's called the
spectrums of rattles. Really, a lot
rattlesnaker,
of guys use it just for rattles, but I found a lot
and
of
you
uses
just
for
Man,
stab
what an
it
awesome tool. And if you've ever
into
tried to
the
put,
head of
rattles or
wherever you
weights
want
or
to insert a
anything
rattle, and
into
then
an
just
elastic,
punch
you
it in
don't
and
know
pull
how
it
much
out.
of a pain it is.
And
I've
looks like a cool deal.
Of subtle action that really
Now,
imitates bait fish very, very
Z-Man's
well.
got
Yeah, and like you said, you know, it
couple
matches
other
up
micro
perfectly
baits.
with those micro
This
shad heads, you guys. We have one rigged
baby
up here,
ballers,
right there.
and then they've
Just
got
tiny, tiny little bait, you know,
the new
you do a
jig
little-
head for
you do a
their
little catch
micro
and
baits.
release,
Looks pretty
or
cool.
if you know you fish where we fish and you have highly
But
You
there's
got
the
that
baby
little ball on
ballers.
the back, and the fact that this is made of Elastec,
I mean, it
number
looks
one,
like
it's
a mule fishing type of
extremely
bait,
buoyant, which means that
and I'd probably rather
That's
support mule
There's
fishing.
maybe a couple guys that like it a little bit more.
Talked
but
about
we
the
know
chatterbait,
that you throw the
Elite
heck out of that
Evo.
thing, and you've done
The one thing we didn't really mention is the O'Shaughnessy
That's
hook
exactly right. Hey,
on it.
So we've got a little piece of lead here on the shank of the hook, as well as the wire keeper. So once you rig this bait up, it's there. Line tie on this bait is greater. So honestly,
And I'm
He
sure-
talked
I
about
don't
the
throw a
line
lot of
tie
times
on the
thinking
bait.
without
That's
that.
what I mentioned
I'll promise you.
last night, is that because the size of the line tie, I think it's going to be
That's phenomenal.
comparable
One of
in
the
terms of
best,
startup
you know,
time
vibrating jig anglers
um,
on the planet
as the
Keep It Down.
jackhammer,
If you guys want to check these out, head over to tacklewarehouse.com.
but because of
Our
the
buddies
material
over here
on the
at
blade, the
Z-Man won
thickness of the
themselves a
blade,
little award.
they're always winning something at ICAST.
They
and
always
all
do
that
win
stuff, I
something.
don't know
What
if
did you
it's
guys
going to be
win
the
this
same,
year?
but
all right, so best
um,
of categories. I handed it to him.
I already asked
Z-Man
for-
has
for a
two
couple
new
of-
baits
hey,
called the
we're gonna get you a
Molotron.
couple.
Yeah.
One
So this
is
bait
the
right here is really
RT
cool. Obviously, the first thing that you see is this proven, the West Coast guys
or
know what I'm talking
LT.
about.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
rounded wedge tail design. This thing is awesome. Even at the
maybe it's
slow
LT because that's line
you
through.
can just really
So
just
Z-Man has
slowly
gotten a
crank
hold
this
of the
thing in,
wedge
and
tail.
Yeah, dude, you know.
You
And
know,
it just has that
Savage
perfect
Gear already
action,
did that. Now
and,
Z-Man's
and,
doing it.
you know,
They've
that's
got a
probably
line
my favorite
through
feature, actually. My
top
favorite
hook
feature of
that
the
comes out,
Voltron LT
and that reminds me a
is
lot of another thing that Bass Mafia is actually doing. Bass Mafia just announced that they're going to be putting out a pre-rigged version of their dangerous swim bait. So instead of the unrigged version, they've now got a pre-rigged version, but it's a top hook and a line through. So that single top hook will release when you set the hook, so you can fish it low and slow. And I think that's a great idea. So Z-Man's got it in their Molotron. Bass Mafia's got it in their dangerous pre-rigged, and I like to see that. Yeah, I'm definitely happy to see that there are line through top hook baits that are being sold now in a couple of different versions. So not mad about that. A 2-inch bull shad bait. I don't know, but I'm not all that interested in it. There are some things like that on the JDM market, just baby sized swim baits, but that is not my jam. Yeah, does the Gilling have a tiny little version of it? I'm not sure. I know that they've got the Gilling Neo and the Gilling in a couple of different sizes, but I didn't know they made it in a little baby dude. The Z-Man Goby baits are going to be in your cart. I think maybe the TRD Gobies, but not that pre-rigged Goby, you know, because it's not necessarily the durability. I haven't had the problem with the Dark Sleeper, the Agent E with like the harness system coming out. It's not been durability that's the issue. It's hookup ratio and weedlessness that's been the problem for me. I've gotten those snagged up a bit. So that's been an issue. Yeah, and I think most people are with you on that in feeling like it's going to be a plus that the Evo Chatterbait is going to retail at $10, and then at places like Discount Tackle it'll be $8.50 or $7.99. It'll be a screaming good deal year round. So will be worth getting and trying for sure. Just depends on how the action actually compares. And so I will be trying it out and we'll let you guys know. But Brendan did tell us that it doesn't thump as hard as a jackhammer. And I figured that would probably be the case, especially after watching the underwater footage from Wired to Fish and hearing that it has a higher pitch. So has a quick startup given the space in where the blade attaches to the head. That larger hole, the line tie, if you will, not where the snap is, but where the line tie is on the head is larger. And there's a big enough hole in the blade where it attaches there that you really get that freedom of movement, but you get a little bit less contact with the head and a little bit different material of the head and the blade, that it creates a faster, higher pitch, a little bit more like what you get out of the Thunder Cricket than what you get out of the jackhammer. So should be interesting to actually see it and feel it for ourselves. But let's go back.
This line through hook design right here, okay? So you got the line that goes in through the nose there, through that channel, and then you got this straight shank hook here, very unique design.
So very similar system as what the Dangerous swim bait has got now. Scott Martin was the one to present it
What the harness system is
instead of
inside
Chris
that. You can
Aldane
feel it. There's
at
no-
ICAST.
That bait.
Now the
Which is the-
Molotron's also
Aldane
being
is
released
cook
in
those
a
fish and let- how many colors do you have?
unrigged version
Out there, and,
and a small
obviously
little
data
dude.
plastic,
So
very, very
that should be
durable. The
interesting,
one thing that is really special
especially
about this bait is
for,
obviously that rounded,
just more
design.
subtle
And,
presentations,
West Coast guys know exactly what this tail
especially
brings.
on
There's
just like a
lot of
ball
bait
head
like
jig.
And there's not a lot of baits that have to go with a weedless pro.
The perfect rod for the Ned.
And they made a
Rig
Ned rig
fishing.
rod.
He catches
Daniel
more fish than
Nussbaum
anybody I
is
know.
looking a
Not
little bit
using a-
old.
And I can't wait to
Okay. There were one or two others, the Amakatsu one is where he talks about the lazy swimmer there and about dead sticking it. But Yamamoto
keep it the best.
is
Three
putting
layers
out
of plush
some
comfort you
different
can see.
sizes and a lot of new baits in their Mega Floater formula.
Here at ICAST in the Yamamoto booth, you know what? They don't let me out behind. We got a lot of cool stuff coming out.
So they've got a curly tail worm.
Big old ribbon tail worm. What's this guy called?
They're calling that the
So this is
Ichi.
the Ichi worm, the
Ichi.
Yama Ichi,
Okay.
and this is a 10-inch worm and a couple cool. features
10-inch
about
curly
the
tail worm from
We're
Yamamoto,
gonna talk
made with
about
their
it.
Mega
This is-
Floater
I mean,
formula.
what do you think?
They've
Colors
got
like this,
a 10-inch straight tail worm called the Oki, also in their Mega Floater formula. It's got a tapered body at the top. Reminds me a little bit of like the
What kind of techniques are you going to use this thing?
the
with?
Z-Man Mag Fatties or something of the sort. But
So
nice
anyways,
long
hey, this is
10-inch
not for
straight
you
tail
guys,
worm.
this
I
is
think
gonna be
Brendan will be a
awesome
fan
stuff.
of
But
one,
anytime
if
you
not
stop
both
this worm,
of those baits.
Get some of those big ones.
Yeah.
You know, on the
material here, that is
bit and a vlog coming to you.
And then the baby Yamatanuki, we've already talked about that.
It is. Right?
this is
It's
gonna be killer on A Ned rig and a bunch of other really finesse presentations, but that thing looks tiny.
Popular baits ever sold by number one
Next is
selling
a
in the country
5-inch fat Senko.
ever.
So
It has now gotten a little fatter.
yes, that is
Yamamoto
so we
Senko
wanna make a fat Senko
in a fat
and
version,
this
but in the
scale.
5-inch. So I think they've only had the Fat Senku in like the 3-inch up until now, but now the 5-inch, which is their best seller, comes in a fat. So that's pretty cool.
Call it new scope shad.
Live scope bait called the Scope Shad. It's got more of a flat than a round design. It doesn't necessarily appeal to me all that much, but will probably be big amongst pros, but there's a lot of baits like that being released. 3-inch Yamakra. We talked about that last night. Not surprised to see that it's coming out, even though it's pretty quick after the 4-inch standard Yamakra. I think I'll probably like the 3-inch better than the 4. The 4 looks big.
So a lot of water, and it just.
And then I thought maybe there was one other. I think that's it. So Yamamoto, a couple baits there that were not talked about from Wired to Fish. And then there's a lot of these that I have not watched. So pardon me for not clicking on a lot of them. I'll show you that line through real quick from Bass Mafia.
Tackle Warehouse, first look at ICAST. Hook like that. You know, that bait undulates 6 inch up to 7 inch in the regulars. Awesome. Warehouse.com. Up next from Bass Mafia, we have a
what?
walking bait. It's a medium-sized swim bait here, 6-inch swim bait. It's still a lot of plastic and it's a lot of people you can fish. You have to have this bait perfect, 100%.
So it's got a flat bottom. All the weight is placed on the bottom of the bait, and then it's got that top hook.
Weight here on the bottom. This comes in a 3/8 size as well as a 3/4 size. So you can kind of two different.
Well, 3/8 and 3/4. I mean that's pretty light, and then a little bit more proper, but a little bit heavier. So
really going to perform well, not going to roll over and look all weird. It's going to just stay
because of that flat bottom and the weight placed on the bottom.
Set the hook. You got them. You got them just with the hook, and that's unique. There's not another bait out there on the market like this with a single hook like that.
You know, for years, a lot of us have tinkered in the garage with them, trying to rig a good, solid top hook.
I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing. Yeah, okay, you can see it.
I'm glad somebody came up with a good solution to that because there's nothing worse. I mean, we're talking a medium-sized swim bait here, a 6-inch swim bait. It's still a lot of plastic and it's a lot of weight when that fish comes.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
And there's nothing worse than fishing for that big bite, getting it, and then dumping the fish. Yeah. So the line through aspect of the top hook here is really going to be important for those.
Tien Bassmaster, what's up, dude?
You don't want to be.
Yeah. And here's the biggest thing too. This is where Chris's expertise really comes into play. Every little thing.
Yeah, I think we're all probably on a similar train in checking out what's new, trying to figure out what's coming out and what's already available, what's not. But anyway, looks pretty cool. I'm glad to see that it's in a top hook version, so you get really a blend of a mag draft and a Huddleston there, but it's a line through where the top hook actually releases. So pretty sweet there. But Bass Mafia is also coming out with a walking bait. I don't know how I feel about that.
Right. I mean, at the end of
it's got a unique sound to it, but is that necessary? Probably not. A jerk bait? Not necessary. So it's really just that line through that intrigues me. I don't care for Bass Mafia putting out a bunch of different baits. Matt, are there particular brands that are releasing stuff that we don't already know about?
A whole new lineup of jerk baits from Rapala.
Yeah, brand new, a thick bill on them. Look at how thin that bill is on the Maverick, and it cuts.
So the Maverick jerk bait we didn't talk about last night.
And that's jerk bait fishing.
Really, the thing that makes this bait unique is the weight transfer system.
Let's talk about colors. Look at the line.
In that it is now using dual hardcores magnetic weight transfer system. So,
yeah, really cool paint jobs.
Dude, I love.
I mean, good on them for being able to get and utilize that technology.
Smell, Alewife, Whatever
I
you
don't know
wanna
if
match.
Dual didn't
The
have it patented. I
translucent
thought they
colors,
did,
great
but
for clear water.
they've got that magnetic
the
weight
hooks,
transfer
the
system
hooks.
and a bunch
We
of
talked about it
translucent,
earlier, but
pretty
I'm
cool
gonna say it
colors,
again.
but
VMC Redline. They
and
have
it
that
also comes with Redline hooks. So it's probably going to be an
Sunset line.
overpriced jerkbait
Right.
coming from Rapala.
Very sharp
I would
hooks,
probably just
super
go with the
sharp.
Dual
Dude,
Hardcore,
this is the bait. It's
flat
suspended.
minnow as my
Love these things,
preferred
new
version of that
I've
type
got
of bait.
75 here, so two sizes, similar to that.
Making a
Wrap size,
Shad Wrap
number 5 and number 7.
Elite, I think
Couple
it's
that have
called.
been around forever and extremely popular. But yeah, those Shad Wrap Elite, I've had these actually for a few of them. I didn't get very many, but I got a handful, a couple iCasts ago.
I don't actually know what
And
make
the
these
neat
different. I
thing
think
is
it's
it is a
the
Shad
bill,
Wrap kind of profile,
and
but it's a little bit heavier. You actually can fish this on bait casting gear. if you
I think it
want
has a
to.
weight transfer system in
And
it, maybe.
does have a little bit more thump to it, as well as the fact that that bill is kind of squared off.
But yeah, the bill is really the main difference. But
I think
it's a Shad Wrap.
The next level, Shad Wrap Elite, very
Little dude, 5 and a 7.
It absolutely is.
And then the OG Tiny 7 we talked about. Brendan said that Ott told him that that's the best bait at ICAST this year.
That clear plastic.
Sounds kind of silly to me.
No idea.
Of course, Ott talked about it for forever.
It's really about the size of what a lot of bait fish are. Play bait option going forward.
New blade bait. Matt, maybe you want to check it out.
The jigging wrap, right? Like the jigging wrap, the ice fishing lure from 50 years ago.
I don't really care for this.
Swims, it dances.
It's just a big version of the Wrap
You
V.
can stack them. It's a big deal.
Boxes,
Another really cool product. It's
accessories.
coolers. A lot of times about a very magnetic system.
Okay, so not all that excited about Rapala's stuff. I thought there were one or two others that I had seen that I kind of wanted to address. Rapala's soft plastics. This is Jacob Wheeler talking about them.
One, I wanted to have really good colors. Okay.
A lot of cool stuff. And then
He wanted to have really good colors. That's like the first thing he said.
It's a little bit more subtle. Okay. So depending on the depth.
So here's the bait that he was talking about, the freeloader that initially Baitman had a hot take saying that he thought it was just a spunk shad made by Rapala. But as you can see, it definitely does have a different shape with those flat sides on it.
We don't know where the going to go.
It's not a completely round bait with a long tapered tail.
About $120,000 on this.
It's different, but
you don't watch much TV because
Wheeler's been throwing it a lot this year. And then he talked about
both of these are
essentially. Now this is called the Mayor. It's essentially just the Largo shad, perhaps with a little bit more tail on it.
Actually, took me a little bit longer than I anticipated to get it perfect.
Really?
The key with me is like, all right, my whole thing is like, if I can put it in the pool and I can slowly move it, just tight line it, and it's still kicking, then I'm good. And that's what I got it dialed. Another thing is with the 4-inch, he is a little bit more subtle. Okay? The whole key with it is I didn't want the range of motion to be. Sorry about that. I didn't want to know the range of motion. I didn't want that tail kicking back there too vigorously. I wanted it to be very. So I actually added more meat here to really lock it in, but then also have a good body roll. So consistency. Now I caught a lot of bass actually at the Clarks Hill event. The invitational event. I was catching a lot of the spotted bass.
Okay, skip it.
14 to get this bait right.
I probably wanted to kill you. To get the stuff right and make it good, but
14 prototypes to get that Mayor.
The Bronco Bug is, it took some time to perfect this one as well. And this is one that definitely
What does he have
had
to
a
say?
lot to do with salt and the placement of the salt. Putting more, salt in the legs, having more weight in the legs was super key.
The most
first thing you're
blatant
gonna look at this
copycat.
bait, okay, is a little bit more, has a little bit more meat to it. I wanted to design this bait more so for heavier cover. Okay, flipping around, flipping trees, flipping laydowns, all that stuff, mat flipping, all of those things that 4-aught, straight shank hook, 4-aught, wide gap hook. That was my mindset really when it came down to it. That works great on a swing head, all that stuff too. But I wanted durability, and so each side on the body itself, it has.
Do you see that he's
raised
directly
ribs, so you can catch
addressing
those on each side? Okay, those raised
the
ribs
Doe Live
allows that
Beaver?
little slot there, and then if you break, if you tear that, you can go back down into the body, or you can swap sides.
Okay.
You know, so
Yeah.
that just gives the consumer an opportunity to have one or two more fish, you know, on the same bait.
Aren't you here to sell baits?
No, Matt, I like blade baits
Well, yeah,
just
I mean,
fine.
I
Yeah.
am, but like to me, like I'm also a fisherman too.
100%. Yeah.
So like for me, like it comes down to like when I'm on the water, right?
Yeah.
The what if I don't have
Yeah, what a
to,
waste of
run
money,
down to my
dude.
boat and grab another bait and I'm more efficient.
100%. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all it's about. Like so, like when I'm flipping grass, which is grass is the worst for flipping reeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you go through a lot of baits because you're tearing stuff up. You know, so I can figure out if I can make it the perfect thickness where I can get away and I can be.
So Wheeler is literally just justifying why he was able to make this bait and why he would prefer it over the Doe Live Beaver. It has the same action, but a different body. So he's able to do a little bit more with it, put different style hooks in it, and get more durability out of it.
More efficient.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a better chance to win tournaments and make top tens.
And I kind of understand that.
So that's efficiency.
Plus,
So
he's
that's
sponsored by
ultimately
Rapala, so he gets the baits for
helping
free.
The consumer and give them more opportunity to catch more fish on just one day.
And again, maybe talk a little more about
Yep.
the hinge design of the
hinge,
legs.
absolutely. So then the hinge, sorry, going down to the meat part of the
Dolphin.
bottom of this, it really has an undulating action. It swims very much like a dolphin kick.
Yeah.
And the hinge right here was really a key part of really imparting a unique action. When it hits the bottom, these legs come forward because there's so much salt, come forward, hit the front, and then they'll come back to a resting position. And that is like, I've seen them like, you know, now that we have active target
What?
and live scope and stuff like that, I can
That doesn't
see
make sense, Matt.
those fish, I'll pitch it to them. They run sliding out to there. And then that legs, I don't see the legs coming up, but I know what's happening.
Yeah.
And you get that bite.
No,
You know, I
it's
think
exactly
a
like
bite
the
for
Doe
them,
Live
especially
Beaver.
knowing those certain things,
That's
picking
the
an individual
only
fish,
bait on the
especially when they're
market
cross, they're not
that it
they're asking
imitates.
questions. Did I see that? Like, doop. So
Let's be honest, it's not like the Escape Twin, it's not like the Brush Hog. It is like the Doe Live Beaver with a different body. That's
boom,
it.
they eat it, you know, and so that's those are really the deal. I mean, obviously, you know, it was fun to work on this one to get it right and add some cool features to the bait.
A very cool, unique, innovative kind of bait. Something different than lots that we've seen out there before. Again, it's a cool looking bait. You guys, but you have to see it in the water. It's insane looking action. Very cool stuff. Again, durable. You cue it up, turn around, put it back on, and you keep fishing. You're efficient, spending less money and making more money at the same time. Again,
Spending less money than what, dude?
Again, the Bronco, very cool bait, guys.
You'll see like for flipping in it, you know, flipping by itself on a Texas rig, it has these inverted legs.
This is a rage
And
bug.
Every movement that I make, I hop. You know, it's shimmying, similar to a Bronco bug. It has that, and it really just
No, it
gives
doesn't.
a little bit of action. And the big key with this one, and it took the time, was getting consistent kicking action out of the legs.
Okay.
All right. So I wanted.
Yeah, well, that's tough when you have to knock off Strike King. I feel bad for Steve Park. You know, that dude had a patent that he was able to enforce for how many years before then finally Guggen Baits licensed it and then found a way around it. And then since then, everybody else has found a way around it. Everybody else has implemented a similar yet barely different enough flange. And meanwhile, Steve Parks is not making royalties on his flange that he has a patent on. So it's kind of wacky that all these companies,
legs to be
including
kicking. And so if it wasn't right, we
Rapala
went through
now,
several different prototypes,
have figured
really
out the
key.
flange.
And then and just really because like what it is.
Oh, it's so hard to
basically, now it
figure out
won't
the
be as
kick.
Consistent of an action, but it'll be like
It's so hard to figure out how to get around that patent.
Unique and available right now for pre-order on Tackle Warehouse.
Yeah, I don't know where you have to put
Right,
the
up
flanges.
next is a bait that you guys probably heard about most recently is the new BLT Ned.
Yep, that BLT
and this is a
back.
$38,000 bait, guys. If you guys watched the last St. Clair event, he cleaned house with this bait. And a really
So
cool
here you
bait
can
with
see
a
up
lot
close
of
that this is
again,
super
attention to detail,
tapered,
there's
actually.
different things on this bait. And for this, I want you to show me this one, kind of walk us through this bigger one here again.
Yeah.
Some of the details on this kind of one.
Yeah, so the whole key with this particular bait was I wanted it 3 inches long.
Okay.
I wanted it to be a
Couple
little bit
things that are
larger than
interesting.
a typical Ned rig, right? I wanted it to be a tapered tail. Okay. So it tapers out, which ultimately I didn't want it to be stubby. A lot of Ned baits are stubby, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I wanted something that has a little action. So that's the whole key is like this bait right here. I want it where it ultimately has a little bit of action. Did just that. Of course, going into you need it to be a TPE,
Oh yeah, yeah.
very durable,
Oh wow.
super durable. But the big key with this was I did not put a lot of salt in this bait.
Uh-huh.
And the reason for that is I wanted it to be a super high flowing, buoyant.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, this will actually stand up a 1/4 ounce net head.
Okay.
And so
That's kind of substantial to note, right? There are a lot of TPE baits that, even though they're built from a high float and super durable bait or material, they don't float all that well, especially on a heavy Ned head. And Jacob mentions here that, like a lot of pros,
like, I mean, for me, like, that's a huge deal. Like, I like throwing a 1/4, especially when I'm casting around smallmouth.
he likes throwing a 1/4 ounce Ned head. That is really heavy.
And largemouth, and a lot of Ned baits on the market, they don't do that.
Yeah.
They won't stand up. This bait does stand up a 1/4 ounce Ned head, but I also designed it for a drop shot.
Okay.
I mean, that's my favorite. That's how I caught him at St. Clair's on a drop shot. One of my favorite things to do with this bait is to wacky rig it,
Okay.
and or just thread a number 2 finesse Nico through this bait.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's it. Just it keeps it up off the bottom here because it's floating and sitting there. My current's moving.
I don't know. Something tells me that if you're not working the bait fast, it's going to stand up straight, and that doesn't look great on a drop shot. But if you are tight lining it, if you're working the bait aggressively, if you have a lot of current, then fine.
It just kills them. It crushes them. It does.
And so I guess what is the theory behind? Is this more for looks or function of this guy back here?
So this is more so the family aspect of this bait. So
Okay.
there's a whole family. So each of our products, you can see it's very similar in that
Okay, okay.
scenario, a little bit similar to their scenario. All that's a big, just major family. Now, it was more so like a little bit of a shell, like, hey, look, this is the top of the bait, this is the bottom of the bait, you know, and also like a little larva, you know,
Yeah.
it's sort of kind of what it was.
That's what I'm gonna say. Like, what I always heard is like, what is a Ned bait? What's it represent? And more and more I hear guys saying it's a dragonfly larva,
Yep.
and that looks like a dragonfly larva to me.
Yep.
I mean, there's his wings folded up, pretty cool looking little bait.
It is, and then look, it catches them. Also, the big thing with all these baits is scent.
Okay.
The scent's a huge ordeal with all these baits, and especially with smallmouth spotted bass. I'm a huge believer of scent. And so spots, even largemouth, especially during the spawn, I'm really big believer of scent because those big females, that's a big deal. So we had a good scent.
I didn't realize that it had scent in it either, and I'll say that I'm not mad about that. So that Ned bait in particular kind of does catch my eye. The Berkeley Dime, you guys should watch that video. It's sad to see how Justin Lucas tries to talk about this bait, because Justin Lucas is a great fisherman, but
you can see on this translucent one how the weight transfers to the tail, so we got good casting distance there.
So it's got a weight transfer
and then,
system, but that's
your only
dude.
sound that you're going to get out of it too, and that's been really important for us over here at Berkeley, is getting some crankbaits like the Fritz High 5, that's just got
It's fine,
just a
dude. You don't
little
have
tiny
to.
knock to it, because we like that. We like that. We like silent, and we like to throw rattle stuff too. And we still have the Dredger, which has plenty of rattles. But the Dime is awesome. The colors are amazing. I know you're trying to get some for the Delta already, so you can see like that Phantom Red right there, special Red Craw right there. And what's really neat about this being a plastic bait is you can do these type of colors, where you wouldn't be able to do that if it was wood. Some of these translucent colors that we
Does
need.
he not look nervous?
They fit in the lineup.
Tell us a little bit about in the scope of diving depths here, the round bill and the body design, and how that's really going to impact the action here.
So you just get that good, I don't even know what you would call it, but just that good swim on a crankbait. I mean, it's one of those things, like I said in the beginning, we've been testing baits
So it's not
for so
good,
long.
Justin.
When you throw something, you start to reel it back to the boat if it's going to be a fish catcher or not. And I remember the very first time I threw a Fritz High 5, I was like, this thing, threw it the next day in the tournament at the Classic. That's how confident I was. And as soon as I picked up the 4, the 6, and then I got some 10s and 15s, man, at Gunnersville this spring, they were unbelievable. And they're going to be unbelievable for a lot of people.
I'm just wondering why I didn't get some this spring.
Well, it was a top secret project. You weren't involved in that, so
well, that's not very nice.
We could probably hook you up now.
Luckily, if there's a color that is your color, they're going to have it
We are
in the
gonna
brand
have
new Berkeley Dime, available in 4 sizes, right? What are those again?
4 sizes, a 4, 6.
Dude, they're overcompensating on colors he couldn't explain what the action is. He sneakily said that it was a secret project, which means they didn't know if they were actually going to release it or not because there's nothing special about it. It has a weight transfer system. That's it.
6, 10, and a 15.
Awesome. All kinds of great applications, great colors, great casting, great action. A fish catcher, a bite getter. That's the brand new Berkley Dime, available for pre-order.
But most importantly, it gives the bait better action. So colors, you know. But
All about this great new swim bait.
yeah, so this is a boot tail version of the Power Stinger, paddle and Power Stinger.
So we didn't talk about this last night, but the Power Stinger now coming in a boot tail version, a lot like the Zako did. I don't know. I feel very mixed about that. I don't see a whole lot of reason to talk about it. We've also got this
one is the one for forward facing.
weird bait.
Well, obviously, there's a lot that work really well with forward facing
That's a saltwater bait if I've ever seen
sonar.
one.
But the guys at Berkley wanted to come up with a bait that was designed pretty much specifically for using on forward facing sonar. And so this bait is all about angler control. You can cast it, and then the action is just how simple the hook clip is.
They decided to talk about the coal shad since they fucked it up the first time around.
It compacts.
Then Ike
in
talks
the fish's
about the
mouth.
Nessie here.
So many of those hard glide baits, it's so rigid.
Ike, quite the salesman. We don't need to talk about. But look, he talks about the Nessie for a full 10 minutes. I mean, look at what he says here.
They're plastic. It's a.
Up next, joining us in the Berkley booth is Mr. Mike Iaconelli,
Listen to this.
Warehouse and Berkley Pro Staffer, here to tell us all about the Nessie. It's a brand new glide bait. It's a swim bait from Berkley. Tell us all about this.
All right, how much time do we have? Because there's a lot going on with this lure. All right, first of all,
Yeah, that's overcompensating if I've ever heard about it.
Also about frogs.
Berkley
Mr.
has a
Bobby
new
Lane.
frog.
Bobby, this is the brand new Berkley Swamp Lord walking and popping frog. Tell
Swamp
us all about
Lord.
these.
And look what they're doing.
Look at this burnt bone color, man. I mean, we got them all.
Oh,
in the,
cool colors.
In the walking frog and the pop and the Fusion 19 hooks, but you can see the bite. I mean, the minute you squeeze, these Fusion 19 hooks are going in these fish's mouth. Frog fishing is back. I'm
It's the
enjoying
hooks.
it myself, and with these new frogs, I've been catching a lot more. And man, I'm super pumped. I throw it on one line, Durabraid, 50, 65-pound test. The only braid I throw now, man. I just love the problem resolved. We've got the swamp. What all frogs don't have, right?
New Berkley Swamp Lord walking and popping frog. Tell us all about these.
Yep, the standard and the popping frog, man. We've been working on years with this thing, and we finally got it right. And
Bobby.
what all frogs don't have, right, is the softness. What does everybody do when they grab a frog? First thing you do is you try to feel how soft it is. You want to see where the bite is on the frog. So for years
That's
and years,
true,
we tried to
but-
get this frog soft enough. Well, we got the problem resolved. We got the Swamp Lord out. What I love about the packaging, you can actually push right here inside the packaging to see how soft these frogs are. Fusion 19 hooks.
Yeah, there's a lot of compensation going on there. I mean, from the name to the packaging to just talking about the hooks, I don't love that. I gotta say, Bobby's selling out. Okay, well, there's a lot of videos from iCast to see, and it's worth looking at. I'll say that much. You know, we can slow down the stream here, but Tackle Warehouse has a whole bunch of information, and there's more stuff than what you'd see on Wired to Fish and other places on like previews and new baits. But I'm glad that we could go over a little bit of that tonight and do a little part 2 of last night, in addition to the unboxing from tonight or last night. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna let it play, dude. Sorry. You can go rewatch it if you want. No, dude. You want me to let that play? I could go back. I mean, Ike is quite the salesman if you want to hear it. I'll do it. I'll go back. You can hear everything that he has to say about it.
Bass Pro Shops Guideware features Vortex technology with the protection you need from the elements.
Justin Lucas,
Hey.
in the Berkeley booth. We're here
because it's a soft bait. This one,
Nelly, Tackle Warehouse, and Berkeley Pro staff.
All right, here it
Here to
comes.
tell us all about the Nessie. It's a brand new glide bait. It's a swim bait from Berkeley. Tell us all about this.
all right, how much time do we have? Because there's a lot going on with this lure. All right, first of all, it's a soft glide. And I want to talk about that because most of these glide baits are hard. They're resin, they're plastic, they're other materials. This one is power bait, right? So think of the advantages of a soft glide bait. I can skip it, I can chuck it a mile, but here's a big one. You ready? It compacts in the fish's mouth. So many of those hard glide baits, it's so rigid that they hit it and they can't get it in their mouth. This one compresses. The other great thing about this one is the sound of a soft glide bait. So a hard glide bait is mechanical. It sounds mechanical, right? Screws, plastic. This one is silent because it's a soft bait. And again, it's power bait, right? So it's soft, price point. This is a glide bait that the regular dude can buy. You go online and you try to buy a lot of these glide baits, we're talking about $50, $100, $200 for one bait. $12.99 for the 9-inch Nessie, which is a great price point. All right, let's get into some of the features of it. Start with the tail. We have an integrated paintbrush tail. And if you're watching this and you're a hardcore swim bait guy, glide bait guy, you know that that's a qualifier for it to be legit, okay? So the paintbrush tail gives it not only a bait fish profile, but a little bit of texture. Feel that thing, right? A little bit of texture in a soft bait. The next thing on this bait are the stabilizing fins. We like to call it a hybrid bait because although it's soft plastic, feel the fins.
Oh, yeah.
The fins are actually hard plastic. So the fins are going to give it its swimming ability and its stability to be horizontal in the water. And listen, with these glides, it's so important. You don't want a bait to be like that. You don't want a bait to be like that. Dude, a natural bait fish sits like that. So these hard fins gives it an ability to stay horizontal. But they also let you work it right out of the pack. I'm really, really proud of this Nessie because you throw it out and it moves itself. And you're going to see that S movement of this bait, okay?
Daniel.
Let's go to the joint. And we have a single joint. That's what makes this bait S. And if you look at that joint, it's wider in the back than it is on the front joint. So when the water hits that joint, that's what's going to give it that movement. If you hold it up to the light, you're going to see mesh on the inside. And we've got a mesh system that
you're right.
keeps those joints together. So we're going to be able to catch a ton of fish. All right, let's go to the hooking system. Dude, this is the deal. Okay, so we have a harness hooking system with a big, super sharp single treble, but the clip is the magic, okay? So when that hook is engaged in the body, we've got a little slot, we've got a clip. It keeps it in the bait, locked in place. So we can skip it, we can long cast it. The hook is always in the right position. When the fish eats it, the hook will snap out, and he can't leverage the weight of that bait, and you land the fish, okay? So really, really critical part of this bait is that hook clip system. We're going to go next to the eyes. Oversized eyes on this bait. And if you're a swim bait guy, you know they headshot these lures. So we want that fish to go after the front. That's like a target. It's like a bullseye, okay? Last but not least, on the body itself, we have little bullseyes on it for your nail weights. And we can custom nail weight this to go deeper in the water column.
Matt, you're so right.
Let's end with the colors. Dude, custom colors. You've got the rainbow trout. Look, I've got the herring, golden shiner, shad. I mean, these things are hand painted This isn't a pad paint process. This isn't some cheap painting process. These are hand painted to be custom swim baits. So, dude, this is going to change the game. It's going to allow the average dude to throw a glide bait for the first time at a reasonable price point. It's amazing.
Well, there's a lot of people like myself that own a small fortune in custom glide baits that are going to want to add this to their arsenal as well. You can really tell that this bait was well thought out from the nose to the tail, the top to the bottom, hookup being first and foremost. You get a lot of followers, a lot of bites on the glide, and having that soft bait to increase your hookup ratio. Super well thought out bait, beautiful colors. This is the brand new Berkley Power Bait Nessie swim bait. It's available for pre-order now at Tackle Warehouse, shipping this fall. Thanks for telling us all about it.
You're welcome. I can't wait people to try it out. It's going to be a great day.
Up next with Ike in the Berkley booth, we have the brand new Mike Iaconelli what is it? Signature Series?
Signature Series?
Signature Series. Yeah. The brand new Shad E swim bait and so much more, right?
Yeah.
Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's a cool bait because it's an extension
And here he comes.
of the Gilly, and widely successful, popular Gilly. And we basically took that concept and brought it into a more elongated shad style bait. So it's the same, but it's different. Okay, so rigging options like the Gilly, a lot of ways
Did you hear that? It's the same, but it's different.
to rig this thing, man. Okay, so Texas rigged, side rigged, swim bait hook, Carolina rig, flipping, pitching, a lot of rigging options, and I think
But
that's one of the keys to this bait. The next thing is the action, and like the Gilly, it has a fluid inline action, but it's tighter. It's a lot tighter, and the way we did that is we removed the side tabs on this bait. So it catches less water, so we tightened up the action. So if you're familiar with the Gilly, it's even tighter, okay? We have the same stamped pad in the back, and if you look at that, it's almost like cut. And that's what's going to give that bait that fluidity of movement. Look at
Matt,
that
you're
little-
kind of right, dude.
Little dorsal fin
The thread.
So being anatomically correct and profile is super important, right?
Daniel, I
So
think you're right.
We have an elongated shad profile, even with the little thread. Stabilizing fins, like the Gilly, if you look at it, we have a set on the tail. We have a set as on the body. So that's going to keep it horizontal. That's going to keep it anatomically correct. It's a great way to keep that bait up. Even laying on the bottom, when you let this thing settle to the bottom, it's going to settle to the bottom like this. And
I
one
don't
of the
know if
keys to this bait, like the Gilly, you ready? Hollow top slot. And if you
So
look
listen,
at it, you got
listen.
a little hole in the top. The whole top of this body is hollow.
Listen.
So most of the weight is in the bottom. Because it's bottom weighted, that's how you're going to get that horizontal fluid movement. So two sizes, a lot of great colors, including these HD patterns. Dude, it mimics the exact forage you're trying to match. Gizzard, threadfin, alewife, whatever you're trying to match, we have a color for it. So great new bait.
Some really cool finishes, a great design. Can tell a lot was put into the thought, the form, and the function of this bait. I will say, so some of the versatility with the Gilly, I think there's so many ways to rig it, was also daunting for some anglers, including me.
Yeah.
Where's a good place to start? If I want to buy
Here
this
it
bait
is.
and try one rigging technique, where would you recommend people start?
There's so many great rigging methods. My favorite, without a doubt, is called side rigging, which is Texas rigging the bait with an EWG style hook, but putting the hook below the middle of the bait, right? Always on the bottom. Once again, hollow at the top, solid bottom. When we side
That's the copycat.
rig it, we're going to get that fluidity of movement, and you can fish it anywhere, right? It's not an exposed hook. So weeds, docks, logs, brush, throw it right in the middle of it and reel it back.
Awesome. Great place to start. A great new bait available for pre-order now at Tackle Warehouse.
All right. That alone has given me enough. I've had enough. You know, Matt, you're right that I could sell dirt to a homeless man. He knows all the features. He knows why it's going to interest people, how to give decent advice about how to make the bait act properly, but also explain how theoretically it makes the bait different than the exact bait that they're copying. So I'll say Ike is a hell of a salesperson, and good on him for that. But I would agree that the Gilly didn't do much for me, but I also kind of like the look of the Shad-E. It's silly, right? The Gilly has been on clearance in some places. That's true. And it is likely because it bombed, but yet it was a best in show winner, right? Same with the Nessie. We'll see what happens with it over the next year or so, and whether it's a killer bait or not. But according to Matt earlier tonight, it will not be, and according to Ike, it absolutely will be. It's probably going to be somewhere in the middle, and it's up to the rest of us to determine which side of the spectrum it will actually be on. Are we talking Donald Trump, or are we talking Joe Biden, or are we talking someone in the middle? Are we talking Andrew Chang? Are we talking Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Are we talking somebody else? Who knows, right? I mean, it'll be very interesting. Not that we need to talk politics tonight, but yeah, that's fair, Daniel. You trust Matt more than you would Ike. Matt's not making any money to promote the baits that he is, although maybe he is. Maybe he trusts Ben from the hookup more than he trusts pros, and for reasonable reasons, right? I mean, I would totally understand that. But that said, Ben's trying to sell tackle just like the rest of the pros. He owns a store and is very good at understanding the features, benefits, and reasons that we should all buy every single bait in his store. So I get that, but I'm not saying that you're a fanboy of the hookup necessarily, but JDM, sure. And I think, Ben is very well informed and is a good salesman in his own right. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see is if it's actually durable or not, right? But for the price tag, I think it's going to lure a lot of people in. So, yes, Ben is trying to sell expensive tackle, and he's good at it. So, what can you do when he's saying here's the best 5 of these style baits? They're all expensive, and he's just saying these are the best options out there. And you're like, well, shoot, I should grab a couple of those options. It's like that's how the average episode goes for the hookup, is that they're selling you on nothing but expensive stuff and telling you all the best options. And so you can't help but get a little bit suckered in, especially when they have custom colors, special runs. They get exclusive access to certain things, and it's limited. Then you end up rushing an order for the sake of getting one or two. So yeah, I'm whatever. Everybody's selling something, right? I'm with you, Matt. I think most of us are. All right, guys, we've been on for a little over 2 hours tonight. It is getting late. It's almost midnight my time, and I'm with the kids all day tomorrow. So I'm gonna get out of here. But super fun hanging out with you. cool to do a little bit of an unboxing, show you just 5 little baits, and technically 3 baits, just 5 total baits that I bought, and then doing an extension of last night, talking about some stuff that we didn't necessarily talk about already. And there's a ton more that we didn't. You know, I could have looked up more, but glad that you guys were down to hang out. You know, there's only 13 people in here right now, but hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button and that you're already subscribed to the channel. And I'll see you again in the next one. Cheers, guys. Peace.